Kaipacho with the weekly Pele report for June 10th of 2026. What can I say? I gotta start off with a little blackberry. Yes, I do. Yum. It's that. Oh my God, is that good? It's the time of year. It's the time of year. Oh, and look at how perfect for today. It's half red and half black. There's another one over here. Half black and half red. How Gemini is that? Yeah, I want to talk to you about Gemini. I want to talk to you about there's a new moon coming up in Gemini on Sunday. And, oh shit. I got to pay attention. Maybe I'll have my blackberries after the Pele report. Instead of, it's impolite to eat in front of other people. So, I'm going to just have to wait on that. Yeah? Let me give you the aspects that I want to talk about, because I must say, I think it's going to be story time. We got to go into Gemini a little bit. It's a very underrated sign, and we got to straighten that out. And of course we have to straighten that out. Why? Because Mercury is square Saturn today, like right now. Let's get serious, folks. Okay, Mercury square Saturn says structure, right? Solidify your thoughts. Be clear with your communication. Look at these little guys. Problem is that they have thorns. So I get stuck up a little bit on these things. The moon is in Aries, okay? And by tomorrow she is going to be going into Taurus. And there she's going to square Venus, conjunct Chiron. You know, Chiron's at the very last critical degree of Aries. So moon's going to pass right over Chiron. Venus is going to be squaring Chiron on Friday. So Venus is, in very, very late Cancer, squaring Chiron at very, very late Aries. And then Venus is going into Leo on Saturday. She will be joined by Jupiter in a couple of weeks. So, hot diggity dogs, things are moving along. Everything is changing, as Gemini is the constant reminder, of that for us, because it is mutable air, changeable change, right? Okay, so anyway, so the moon moves on, through Gemini and comes to the sun. Boom! Brand new new moon at 24 degrees, 03 minutes of Gemini. I will be reading you the Sabian symbol for that. It applies to so much of what I want to share today. And then by Monday, she moves into Cancer and goes home. Yeah. So, last final aspect that is coming up next Monday, actually Tuesday, Venus will trine Neptune from Leo to Aries. So we've got the goddess over there in fire after a month in water, trining Neptune. That's going to be in Aries for a long, long time. And anyway, yeah, let me just sit down and talk to you about this. All right, everybody. Whoosh, it was hard to find a place in the shade, so I'm sitting in the mud. What you do for Pele. Anyway, all right, I don't want to waste too much time. I got a lot to say, a lot going on here. We got to straighten things out about Gemini. Just what is Gemini all about? It is a very complex archetype, the twins. And I think it's highly underrated and misunderstood as being, light and airy and changeable and the trickster and just talk and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot going on with Gemini. And now we have what? Sedna, okay, the underwater goddess, okay, of the oceans. And we have Ceres, okay, Mother Nature, super powerful, transiting for, at least the rest of the month, all right? And now we have the sun and the moon, and of course, Uranus. And we had Uranus, Sedna, Ceres conjunct. They still are, basically. From May all through June, they all move very slowly, okay? Except Ceres has kind of moved on. You can see it. I think it's at 7 degrees now. Uranus and Sedna are still down at 1 and 2. But let me get on with this because it's very complex. It's not just twins. There were 2 sets of twins. And we need to really look at the whole picture, okay? So Zeus, Zeus came down off of Mount Olympus on one of his escapades, and he made love with Leda, okay, the queen and wife of King Tyndareus. And he impregnated her. And she gave birth to 2 sets of twins. One set of twins was from Zeus, and they were demi-gods. Okay? And, those 2, well, Helen, we'll get back to Helen, okay? But then also Pollux. So Pollux and Helen are like sky demi-gods. Then Leda gave birth to Castor and Clytemnestra. They were from King Tyndareus and therefore earthly. So we have Castor and Pollux, Helen and Clytemnestra. No, Jesus, man. Pollux and Helen are the gods, and down here is Castor and Clytemnestra, the earthlings. So it is a quaternity, way more complex than just duality and schizophrenic and this, that, and the other thing. Now, instead of just 2, like bipolar, no, we've got 4. Oh my God. So let's look a little bit at this, okay? We've got, Pollux was known as an amazing boxer, okay? Castor was more of a horseman, right? Earthly and this, that, and the other thing. And Castor was slain in war, right? He was in battle and he was killed. He lost. And Pollux mourned the loss of his brother and told Zeus he did not want to live without his brother Castor. And so Zeus allowed him to, I don't know that he killed himself, but Zeus basically took Castor and Pollux and threw them up into the night sky as Gemini the twins. Only they could not go there without their sisters. Their sisters. Let's look at the sisters a little bit, okay? So Helen, we know, was not the source, but she was part of creating the Trojan War. Paris won the whole, bet kind of a thing with Eris and the goddesses and the golden apple to the fairest. Anyway, he chose, Venus Aphrodite as the most fair of Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera. And Aphrodite said he could have the most beautiful woman. The most beautiful woman on earth was Helen, even though she was a demigod, right? And Helen we see as this very amazingly beautiful, drop-dead gorgeous goddess, okay? But she remained inactive and completely passive and just kind of looked down while the whole Trojan War occurred and blood was shed and, massive misery and suffering. She was, kind of up above, aloof, distant in the sky with her beauty and non-active. Her sister, Clytemnestra, on the other hand, was extremely active and actually killed her husband, King Agamemnon. And now we can get even more complex because there are two different stories, two different versions of what happened with Clytemnestra and King Agamemnon. One is by Homer, and it's very short, okay? And the other is by Aeschylus, and it's part of a big, long, 3-part play, drama, tragedy, where he goes into like a whole big, deep story. So the story, the long, deep story of the Greek tragedy has it that Clytemnestra had her daughter with the king. And when the Trojan War came out, before he sailed off to Troy, the king sacrificed his daughter, Clytemnestra's daughter, to the gods. And then he set sail. For 10 years he was gone, fighting the Trojan War. In the meantime, while he was gone, Clytemnestra also had an affair and got involved with another man. And while he was gone, King Agamemnon had an affair and got involved with Cassandra. And he actually sailed back from Troy with Cassandra at the bow in the boat, like flaunting his concubine, right? Bringing her back with him like a spoil of war or something, okay? And so Clytemnestra actually trapped him with a net in the bath and slaughtered him with an axe. Now, everything in mythology is symbolic, and I'm not going to go through all of the symbolism in this myth, but it's very, very deep and very, very powerful. So we have Clytemnestra acting out, okay, of revenge, out of anger, out of despair, out of, he killed my baby, right? And then he comes back with this woman. And then she also killed Cassandra in the story. Now, in the Homer version, Clytemnestra was simply kind of manipulated by her lover to kill the king so that he could become the king. And yeah, there's a whole big story. This whole mythology goes back to the whole sense of the family of King Agamemnon was basically cursed. And all of this killing and destruction and revenge and murder, all happened until finally Athena, the goddess of justice and wisdom, had to create a court to settle these matters for the entire family. But here, I just want to bring up, okay, that Clytemnestra is the human, feminine side, okay, in this whole quaternity of Gemini. And she is dark, she is deep, she is passionate, she is the powerful feminine energy that has been violated. And this gives a whole nother dimension, I think, to the understanding of this sign of Gemini. Because what it is, and we have to understand that it is the first, there's the Aries, the ram, Taurus, the bull, and then we have humans for the first time. It's an air sign. It has to do with objectivity and thinking and analyzing. What is his thinking and analyzing? Well, it needs to think and analyze, okay, this heavenly, earthly nature that we are all born with. So Aries is the spark, right, from heaven that comes and descends to Taurus, the bull, symbol of fertility and sexuality and sensuousness, right? So this earthly nature, and then the Gemini twins have to kind of spar it out, wrestle it out, maybe discuss it amongst themselves. But there is this whole energy of spirit and earthly, right? And so, this Clytemnestra and Helen, very much symbolize the anima, right? The shadow part of that masculine Castor and Pollux that has lived through the centuries as the sign of Gemini. Like this whole patriarchy has just said, oh, forget Helen and Clytemnestra. The feminine's too complicated. She messes up the whole sign. Let's just keep Gemini simple. Guys. Oh my God. So anyway, destruction happens as a result of either non-action, like Helen, right? All the destruction of the Trojan War, or through passion-driven, revengeful, anger, emotional, instinctive actions, overactions being taken. So, too much action, not enough action creates destruction. And it's really up to, this energy, that needs to be made conscious. And this is the task of Gemini. Yeah? This is the task of education. This is the task of thinking. Is what? Mindfulness. Taking into account. And this is where it can happen with Gemini. There can be this separation between the head and the body. Yeah? Where they can just, go on and on and on, listen to the radio, their mind is this unending seeking stimulation. Oh my God, look it. I've got friends. Speak of the twins. Gemini, the twins, black and white. Oh my God. Fucking love it, man. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, to where it's just noise, and they're not even aware of what their body is doing. They're all in their head. Okay? The other one is that they can just be like robotic. Just do their actions in a robotic, where they are, again, detached. But when you detach, and when you are not taking into consideration what? Well, earth and water, the first and second chakras. The first chakra is earth, second chakra is water. Then the third is fire, and the fourth is air. So what we have, is that it's necessary for us, right? Wow, these guys are like coming up to shore on me. And the need, the necessity for getting out of the head, out of the superficial, out of just the surface of things, and using that curiosity that's naturally inborn to really focus in, to investigate and understand, the self, the emotional body, and the physical body. And when these emotions and physical bodies are incorporated into the mental body and the spiritual body, air and fire, then we have a whole integrated soul nature capable of tremendous acts of greatness. So it's interesting. I want to tie that in a little bit now with our Sabian symbol for this. And it is a gardener trimming large palm trees, bringing under control nature's power of expansion, right? Our root chakra, Pluto, yeah? Mars energy down in the root. The intellect of man is like a tropical plant in that it tends to expand wildly in many directions, seeking direct contact with the sun's rays. Like a palm tree, it uses its dead leaves to protect itself against dry heat. The heat of the realm of the mind, when deprived of the complementary power of the feelings. A culture is characterized by specific forms and prime symbols. Education's main object, at least in cultural and classical periods, has been to contain the imagination of individuals within these traditional forms. An entirely different approach to education is being attempted in our transitional age. There is a need for repeated pruning. Pruning is in capital letters. That's the key word, pruning. But you get what Dane is trying to say here. First of all, I want to say that, Dane wrote these Sabian symbols in 1973. And, it was at a time, with the counterculture, Uranus, Pluto, in the 60s and the 70s, that really there was the possibility of tremendous change, and very little of that change has actually made it to our time today in 2026. Because what I want to say is that our educational systems are still programming children, are still funded, by corporations, right, and governments that want to make little robots and little workers rather than independent thinkers. So, we cannot count at all on our educational systems to actually educate. Educate means to draw out of. So our educational systems, they're not drawing anything out. They are trying to program and basically, destroy our children. Which brings me to the mantra for today. See, what I'm saying is nothing is as it appears. What was that, Robert De Niro? Yeah, in some movie. Nothing is as it appears. It is the job of Gemini, at this time, particularly with the new moon. Think of this mantra going on for a month, and I talk about the red pill. The red pill is out of the Matrix. I don't know if you've seen the movie, one of my favorites, The Matrix, right? And Morpheus gives, Neo the choice. You can take the blue pill, which will put you back to sleep, and you will never know that you met me, and you will never know that we had this conversation, and you will never know about the Matrix, and everything will go back to normal. Or you can take the red pill, in which case you're going to wake up to reality, right? And that's what I'm talking about in this mantra. Particularly because something I did not even mention at the beginning, but is most important of all, probably, right? Is that, what is it? Tomorrow, Thursday, Uranus is square the moon's nodes. Oh my God. Yeah? Okay. If we use a 2-degree orb, which is a tight orb, okay, Uranus is square the moon's nodes from May 29th to June 26th, a month. At the same degree of 2 degrees plus. The moon's nodes are in south node in Virgo, north node in Pisces, right? Uranus over in Gemini, squaring them both, all right? If at that same degree of 2 degrees plus, from June 3rd to June 16th. We're right in the middle of it, right? For 2 weeks. And that's just, wow. And then Uranus is going to go retrograde, right? And I mean, there's this period of Uranus square the moon's nodes is basically all summer. And it's extremely powerful. Because when planets are square the moon's nodes, they are a skipped step. They are a necessary, it's like totally necessary to incorporate Uranus in Gemini, of course conjunct Sedna, right? In order to go to the North Node, which is the sole evolutionary intention. So this puts extra emphasis now on Uranus, the rebel, the rebellious one, who stole fire from the gods. Think of Pollux and Zeus, right? Pollux, the son of Zeus, and brought it down to the humans. Think of Helen and, Clytemnestra and Castor, right? So this is, Uranus is enlightenment. Uranus is lightning bolts of awareness. This witnessing, observing, opening the third eye, objectively seeing what really is happening, what really is true, seeing past the headlines. There's 2 sides to every coin. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Heads and tails. There's the news that you get in the West, and then you go to Al Jazeera, right? Al Jazeera, whatever, and you listen to that news and you get a whole nother story about what's going on over in the Middle East from what you're going to get from all the Western stations, which are owned, of course, by corporations, which ultimately are owned by banks and the banksters who are behind everything. But that's a whole nother ball game that we don't need to get into today. But all I want to say is, on a very personal note, that's on the worldly level, okay? Just news, and don't believe everything you hear or what you are told or what you read. But know that there's always another side. There's always 2 sides to every story. Even Clytemnestra has Homer and Aeschylus, right? And even Gemini has, Castor and Pollux, and Helen and Clytemnestra. And I mean, there's just like, reality is multifaceted. And we need to be, this is the Gemini beauty of being versatile and being adaptable and being curious and really wanting to, get to the truth of Sagittarius. Its polarity, its opposite, ruled by Jupiter. So this is our task for this month with this new moon in Gemini, with Uranus squaring the moon's nodes, is to wake up. And we wake up also by going inward and not distracting ourselves This is also, in the mantra, not distracting ourselves with superfluous kinds of activities and busyness. The mind, seeks constant stimulation and wants to be always busy. And Uranus rules the nervous system. This is a lot of time where we can have nervous disorders, anxiety, worry. We can just be really nervous wrecks. We need to focus on our physical bodies. Sit still. Sit down. And don't get up until your guides tell you. And while you're sitting there, feel your deepest feelings. Mull over what you've gone through, who you are, what you are afraid of, what's making you nervous, what you're missing, what you're longing for, what you desire. These inner parts of ourselves, of our souls, cry out for attention in Gemini before they make it to Cancer. And I think having just had this Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer should have brought up a whole bunch of feelings. For me, I took a nap. I never take naps. I go. I got the moon in Gemini. Yeah, man, Venus, Jupiter, man, I had some feelings and I had to lay down, man. I had zero energy whatsoever. It was very phenomenal. So we got to get ready now because Venus is going into Leo, Jupiter's going to go into Leo, and July is going to be like fireworks all over for everybody. So now is the time to just, tune in and stay tuned in, right? To the first and second chakra, the earth and the water, the feelings in your physical body. There are two sides to every story, just like coins and dollar bills. I will no longer be fooled, distracted, or sidetracked. But remember to take the red pills. You know what I'm saying? Do not be fooled. And the song for this week, of course, is Put Your Lights On by Santana. 'Cause there's a monster living under my bed, whispering in my ear, and there's an angel with her hand on my head, telling me I got nothing to fear, and there's a darkness living deep in my soul that still has a purpose to serve. Wow, 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 wow. You know that one. It's a classic. You got to check it out. Click the link below. Ding, 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 ding. I hope you read what's the notes below the YouTube video and go out in my newsletter, right? They're the same, but I always mull over what I forgot to say and put them in the notes below, along with the link to the song. The link to the song is always there, and my school and my website and all the things that I'm up to and doing and stuff like that. So I hope to stay in touch with you. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for your comments. And yeah, Gemini, wow. It's really gonna, things are going faster and faster all the time. Try not to get lost in it, but at the same time, you got to do this real balancing act between, make it happen and slow down and be still and listen. So may you find that happy sweet spot, that little point, the teeter-totter, that little point in the middle. May you find that point of perfect balance. Namaste. Aloha. So much love.